Hey, what's up guys? In this video, I'm going to be talking about a couple of ideas, and I'm going to be exploring some things that have been lost, or in better words, things that we don't necessarily take into account anymore when, there's there's always this new emulation and this new reverb and all these things. There's like plate emulation, but there's no kind of before and after that puts it into context in how you would have used these things back in the day. I've been given the opportunity to think about production again, and every time I think about an idea that's kind of maybe profound, maybe not, I'll write it down, and this is one of those ideas. So let's start. This might be one of those longer form videos, and I claim no ownership over this idea. If any company wants to go forth and figure out a way to kind of do this. So let's get this open. This is the Session Dry Kit from Ableton. It is a dry, drum kit. And this is a good example of kind of what we're gonna do. So how things would go about back in the day. So if you wanted a reverb, like in the 50s and 60s, you would have to basically pump the audio into another room through a speaker and then capture it with the microphone, and then you'd have your reverb. And this was pretty cool. And essentially how it would work is, you'd have, let's just get a really good modern reverb open. This is Pro Q. Then let's go to, I guess, a medium rich chamber. How about that? So this is a reverb chamber. So it's basically a empty, very reflective room that you could basically stick a microphone in and, pump a speaker, and it would, flood the room with what you were, what you wanted to hear. And it kind of sounded like this. Right? That might have a little bit too much low end. Right? But that, that's all well and good. So let's put that into a chain. So I'll create a chain here. And yeah, this will be the dry. So imagine these as faders, not dirt. Dry. Dry would usually be on top, and this would be the room, just so we can all keep track. So this is the room microphone, and that would be fed into there. And then yeah, you'd have your dry, and then you'd bring this up, and that's basically all you would have. But there's more to this, and I'm going to come back to this in a moment. I'm going to go to this sound right here, and I'll just get rid of all those. So this is a, whatchamacallit, right? A little percussion thing that's pitched down. Let's get a delay in there. So this will be a simple delay, and this is a 1-to-1 delay, essentially. So this is what it'll sound like. Right, and I'm going to group this, right, and this will be delay, not sway. My fingers don't work, guys. Delay. And then I'll create another chain, and this will have nothing in it, and this will be dry. All right, so this delay right here, it's a 1-to-1 delay. Right, so this right here, this is the delay. I have it soloed. Give it a little bit of feedback so we can hear the tail of it. Right, but this is 1-to-1. And, if you wanted it to sound at all like something in the real world, like say, yeah, this would be a tape delay, let's just say that. So a tape delay introduces a little bit of EQ, maybe like a little bump here, and then a roll off, right? And you'll notice right away, right? It's, lost a lot of the high frequencies. And yeah, we'll just, mix in the dry. Right? So the actual delay part has a color to it, right? So right now it's pretty dark, right? And we can boost wherever. and that will create a particular sound. And this emulates, the actual like tape, and this right here would be the tape head, and like the alignment. I'm not, the tape is like one of the holy grails of emulation. But it's somewhat well understood, I believe, and this would be in relation to the. Okay, so what's happening with a tape delay is the signal is, through the record head. It's through the record head printed onto the tape, so there's a transfer of information there. And on the tape, it has a particular frequency response and EQ curve, and it can even, depending on the speed, be skewed high or low. And then the playhead further on down the line will introduce some, color as well, and some other kind of frequency response sort of thing. And when you take into account, the sending it and then it being received through its amplifier, and then from its amplifier within the unit being, you know, stepped down to I guess, a lower voltage, so it can be able to be played to, the tape head without, causing it to blow up, and then, boosting that signal back out to line level. There's all these things that kind of go into it. And another example would be, let's say, a digital reverb. So, not digital delay. A digital delay, depending on what area you're talking about, would introduce some downsampling and some bitrate reduction. They only operate at like, 6 or 8 bits or whatever. They didn't operate at like, super math floating point, whatever. So, right, it would kind of sound like that. That's an extreme example. But also, the the analog to digital and then digital to analog converters would also introduce some, non-linearities to the sound. So, they cut off a little bit of the high end, and then the high end up here would also be cut off with the bit rate reduction, right? So that would sound like that. I'll just kind of move that down there, right? And then we have a little bit of, it would skew the image a little bit, and we can add another, I guess you call it EQ8 if it'll actually move over, and this would represent the digital to analog conversions. This would be analog to digital, and this would be, the inert kind of, downsampling effect of the digital kind of architecture within the unit. And samplers do this too, the old school samplers. And when you take this and you pitch it down, you also get an effect. So yeah, this would be the analog to digital, and this would be the digital to analog. And they try to like compensate for each other. But yeah, and it would, kind of look like so, and then that would travel to your, recording device, which would also record to tape. And so there's like this whole signal chain of degradation, right? And this is what it sounds like, kind of, right? Right. So the dry signal has all the clarity in the most ideal situations, and then the delay would have the effect of that. And that's basically, a digital delay. You'd want to do that, and this is why they sound pretty neat, in my opinion. So back to these drums here. What do you have here? So you have a reverb, and I like this one because you have the ability to change the listening position. So when it goes into a reverb chamber, it is sent through an amplifier, and then into sent via the mixing console or a send or whatever to a speaker. And that speaker would be, I don't know, like an amplifier or like a cabinet. So let's kind of do that, right? Just for the sake of, argument here. And this would be, I guess, dynamic. And we'll have this a dual for the sake of example here. So, right. So that would be that. Let's get some more kind of surface area moving around here. Right. So this would represent the actual speaker in the room. right? And then this would be the reverb of it kind of being generated. This would be the room here. And the room is dictated by the decay rate, depending on frequency. So certain frequencies bounce around more. The low frequencies just go right through walls and stuff like that. But the higher end frequencies bounce around a bit, and you get some other stuff going on there too. And this would be the pre-EQ would be akin to the frequency response of the audio going into the room. So if we have this kind of open here, let's just see what this sounds like. Right, so this cabinet is basically spitting out audio into the reverb. And yeah, let's boost this just a little bit. Right, so we're losing a little bit of volume here, but that's okay. So from here, you know, we can adjust the distance, whether it's close or far. Right, and that sounds like a room. And I want the brightness to be set to that. Let's do a little bit of gain staging. Right, and let's figure out something else. So after the reverb is generated in the room, well, how do you capture it? Well, you capture it through a microphone. And this is where, you know, this idea has been lost. So if you wanted to like design your own virtual kind of studio, depending on what you wanted to do, like every signal chain, you would need like a bunch of like smaller kind of utilities along the way to build an effect that you were looking for, akin to like the workflow of kind of back in the day. So yeah, what we can do, that's just let's see, no, not MLS, NLS. So this is a channel strip. Or not even a channel strip. It's just the gain stage of a particular console. I'm going to use the this one right here, which is kind of akin to or modeled off of the mixing console that mixed Dark Side of the Moon. I forget TMI. I forget what it's called. But yeah, it has a drive here. So what this will do is this will add color. So sound is going out, right? Out of the console, right? So let's just give it a lot of drive and things like that, just for the sake of it. And then that is within the it's within the signal chain. The transfer of energy through a console is not one-to-one, or through a send or whatever. It's like it adds something, you know. In the real world, it does. In the digital world, it does not. And it is, you know, being fed into its speaker. And then the Pro Q is kind of a reverb. And, you know, I gain staged it. So now, what do we have? Well, we have to emulate a mic. And I don't have a whole lot of mic emulation. I'll use a stereo mic just for the sake of it. But this should be, you know, there should be more utilities for this sort of workflow. And then, you know, we've essentially captured this mic, and there's, you know, some gain here. Right, pretty cool. And then what do we do from here? Well, we have to feed it into something, but there's an alternative as well. So let's, you know, make some sort of a mic. If you ever look at the frequency response of a microphone, I'll just pull one up right now. Microphone frequency response, right? It has a frequency response. It has a number of other responses as well. But yeah, this would be a couple of frequency responses of microphones. And, you know, they have like their, you know, like their interesting kind of curves and roll-offs and accentuations. And then they have their pickup pattern, which I'm not even going to try to get, you know, that going But I might. But anyway, so there is that. Let's like kind of, I'll eyeball it. And then, yeah, there'll be like a little boost around here. Yeah, I'm just designing a microphone right now. Right, and so no microphone has a flat response. And yeah, this will just kind of do these things, maybe a little dip, even though, manufacturers kind of lie and stuff like that. And then I need to bring this down here. So, all right, so there's our microphone. That's our microphone frequency response, right? And this adds to the overall sound. So I'll get rid of those microphones because, just keep it kind of simple. So now, what else occurs in a microphone? There might be some sort of frequency or like amplitude response that it has. A lot of microphones do this, and that's why like the U87 has a particular sound. So let's do something that is more akin to the microphone, like an opto kind of compression, which just gently kind of rides the audio. We'll give it a gentle knee. Right, very subtle. Let's just pretend that our microphone's, doing this, and it's, the audio is kind of being smeared a little bit there through the microphone, and then that is being sent into some sort of distortion unit. I'm going to use Saturn here just as another sake of example, which would be, tube of sorts. And, that might emulate something along the chain. And then what else do you have? Well, let's just get an SSL channel strip. And this will be the kind of the final, quote unquote, final stage of what's happening here. And let's just give it, let's give it some compression, I guess. Right, and maybe some gain here. Right, and then there you have that, right? So this is my, I guess, approximation of you have something leaving the mixing console and it's going out a little bit hot. It's going into a speaker. In this case, I'm using a cabinet. And then the Pro L, or not Pro L, Pro R is the actual reverb. And then the utility of gain is, giving us some gain. And then the Pro Q3 is emulating a microphone response curve. C2 is kind of evening out a couple dynamics subtly, and this is kind of what microphones tend to do. And let's just assume that it's a tube mic, so we got some clean tube and a little bit of drive across all bands. And then the SSL channel strip, kind of what it would be like going back into the console. But there's another step to this, and this is where modularity is kind of important. So let's say, like, we let's just listen to what this sounds like. Right, sounds interesting. Right, maybe I shouldn't have that much boost there. Right, so where did these sounds come from? These sounds came from an object that you hit with a stick, and when acted upon that, it creates a sound, and that sound is in a room. But then, we got rid of the room sound by putting in a gate, and then we add it back in, which is kind of weird. But it's recorded through these microphones, and then it's recorded onto what? It's recorded onto tape. So let's get some tape in here, right? Recorded onto some tape, and then it's played back from tape. And then that's where, so it's another layer of color that, you record your drums, right? And you get that take good, and then you have like your drums, you'd be like, cool, hey, let's do some reverb onto that sort of thing there. And yeah, so this would be in the chain, right? And this would be kind of ideal kind of recording, which this would be, yeah, no feedback, no low, yeah, wow, yeah, okay, so yeah. This would add some compression as well. And that high-end roll-off. So then what happens after it's sent to the room reverb? Everything is basically mixed together back onto tape, and that introduces a whole other thing, and stuff like that. Just the sake of example. Right, so that's our signal path, and that makes sense. What else is there? Well, the the general kind of idea is, like there's like, we emulate like all these really cool things. We, as in like the developer brethren, not brethren, I don't develop anything, but I appreciate what they do. But yeah, there's these, emulations of these things, but then there's no like before and after. So it's like this abstract kind of thing that you just throw on. But then there's like so much more that goes into it, in my opinion, that would, be pretty kind of special. And, like, yeah, emulating, rooms and reverb is done, but the emulation of how that sound is being fed into the reverb, it is the drums, the people that are playing the drums aren't actually, in the room, right? And, those sort of things. So what else can we kind of emulate in our signal chain here? Well, a lot of rooms have these kind of the peaks and nulls, and a lot of rooms are kind of reflective. I'm just kind of maybe end on this, and yeah, so let's take a look. Just when in doubt, just drop LFO tool in there, and yeah, let's do that. And we'll put in a kind of a not a flanger, right? A phaser, so we can get phasing in a room. So what happens when sound bounces around, depending on where the microphone is in the room, or the listener, or the ear, or whatever, depending on where you are, certain frequencies will be masked because they bounce off the wall and then overlap. So, we can kind of add in some, room color using this. Right, and then adjust the mix. Right, and that's another thing. And like I said before, like microphones have a particular pickup pattern. When the sound is bounced off the wall behind it, it won't pick that up. So, reverbs, I don't know if reverb plugins kind of account for this. And I don't know how you would account for that in terms of EQ. The initial, yeah, like the pre-delay might be affected. Who knows? That's not my job to figure that out. That's like, the science and stuff like that. But yeah, this is a video. Yeah, so with that being said, the the idea of building effects chains, how to make them sound authentic, or not even authentic, how to make them sound like real and exciting, is to have like little tiny think of it as a actual signal path that you would have back in the day. And like everything that you do doesn't have to be like, you know, 4 times oversampled and like, pristine. If you have like a reverb or, a delay, throw a compressor on before in the audio effect rack. I want like audio effect racks are amazing because you can just make these really crazy effects. Throw a compressor on, get some tube stuff, experiment, do something weird with pitch modulation, all these different things, and like all these things subtly put together. Like, listen to this, right? Can you hear the NLS stereo kind of occurring? Like that's a pretty prominent effect. What about the cabinet? Right? Everything has a part to play. Right? And if we wanted to get like super nuts or whatever, we'd have a maybe a compressor for the drums. I forgot that part. Just to really slam the drums, that changes everything else. So anyway, I hope hope that was fun. It was fun for me. It's just these things that I think about. So here's an idea. Um, if a if if someone were to just make like these little tiny utilities, it's like here's an SM57 emulation. Here's mic placement in a room, and like you can dial in um like what speaker is in the room and things like that, and take into account what the mixer bus or the send was actually doing. um what else, like all these things kind of, and that's actually occurring. I can sense it occurring because there's plugins coming out that I cannot talk about that definitely do not allow you to have the ability to actually swap out components and adjust things in it on the component level. Like a tube, you can adjust that single tube. In an array of tubes, you can adjust that. You can switch out an op amp, and you can do like modifications within the actual unit itself. And, you know, all these things, and that, you can, is more than just, adding like dust and noise to things. Although noise does accumulate and adds to a particular sound. But yeah, it's an exciting time. But I would really like to see, just the ability to have like true kind of a virtual space to work in. And yeah, that's it. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you learned stuff. Take care and have a good one.